I wanted to wait for the 8 o'clock hour to hit on this here on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio. And if you're at the office by now, you can stream us at kcmotalkradio.com or right on your phone on the iHeart app. Just search KCMO Talk Radio. And it's this idea that if the Kansas City Royals decide they're coming to 119th and Null, your taxes won't go up. I don't believe it for a second. And I think there's plenty of evidence to suggest that if the Royals pick 119th and Null, your taxes actually will go up, despite the pitch from local officials and state lawmakers and the team and everybody else involved in this dog and pony show. So let me explain this here, because obviously what's going to happen is that if the Royals decide they want to play baseball at 119th and Null, they're going to draw a star bond district. What does this mean? They will draw a district around Overland Park and Leawood. They will submit that district to the state, and the state board will then either approve or deny the district. And what will happen is that basically the additive sales tax revenues on top of the current levels within this district, whatever this district ends up being, that the Royals draw if they decide to go to Kansas at 119th and Null, the extra sales tax revenues that come out of this district will be used by the team to pay off the bonds on the stadium. Now, naturally, what's going to happen is, that's one of the most desirable shopping areas in the entire state, right? You can't think of better real estate in the state of Kansas than 119th and Null. So the Royals know if they play baseball there, that is as safe of a bet as it gets, because that's, when you talk about demographics, when you talk about socioeconomic income levels, all these different things, that's as good as it gets at 119th and Null. So they know they've got a slam dunk. There's no going out to the legends and having to start from scratch. They can tap into sales tax revenues already in the area to pay off their stadium. All the shopping, all the restaurants. Now, you will not pay a dime more in sales taxes at any of these establishments. And that's what the politicians will tell you. But here's the rub. This part of Johnson County is going to see growth no matter what, right? It's one of the most desirable parts, I would say, in the entire Midwest, that stretch of Overland Park and Leawood. So those sales tax revenues are going to increase whether the Royals are there or not. Every single year, there will be more sales tax revenues to come out of this part of the state of Kansas. Number one, because of inflation, right? Just naturally. As things get more expensive, as restaurants charge a little bit more for food, as shopping establishments charge a little bit more for their goods and services, the sales tax revenues that come out of these places are going to increase. It would have nothing to do with the Kansas City Royals having a stadium there. Part of that will just be inflation. That's the dirty little secret on inflation, and I've talked about this. The dirty little secret on inflation is that local governments actually don't mind it, because if the cost of goods and services go up 20%, what happens? Their sales tax revenue goes up 20%. They get more money because the sales taxes generated off of the increase in the cost of goods and services goes into their bottom line. So let's take Overland Park. You've got Overland Park, and Overland Park has increased its budget by about 60% over the last few years. I think they're up to a $500 million budget. So they've seen a major increase over the last few years. They rely in large part on sales tax revenues. And suddenly, if the expected sales tax revenues out of the 119th and Null area no longer are coming into their coffers, but instead are going into the Royals, and the Royals are using those sales tax increases to pay off their stadium, well, the city of Overland Park is going to have to get those increases from somewhere, because suddenly one of the prime parts of their city the increases in sales tax revenues over the current levels are no longer going to City Hall. They're no longer going to the city to pay for services. You think the city of Overland Park is just going to give all that money up and say, all right, Royals, you take it. We'll work on a little tighter budget. No, because, by the way, they're going to have maintenance costs in that area as well. And there's very little evidence to suggest that Overland Park has any interest in reining in its spending based on how they've dictated their spending over the last few years. So what will they do? They'll go out there. They'll quietly increase maybe property taxes by a little bit more. They will find other ways to increase revenue because now the increase in revenue that they would expect from one of their prime parts of their own city, 119th and Knoll, a lot of those additive sales tax revenues will now be going to pay off a baseball stadium. So that additive money that otherwise would have gone to the city to pay for basic services is now going to pay off a baseball stadium. And if you think the Royals are just going to tighten their, belt buckle a little bit here, or if the city's going to tighten its belt buckle a little bit here, you're kidding yourself. That's not how it's going to go. So just be careful on this whole idea of like, don't worry, there's no more taxes for you to pay. Well, you tell me what you think the city of Overland Park is going to do when the additive sales tax revenues they would expect to come out of one of the most desirable and lucrative parts of their city is no longer there because the additive sales tax revenues above the current levels are now being used to pay off a baseball stadium. You tell me what you think they're going to do. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio. That is the studio line and the text line here on KCMO. We also have this breaking news this morning. Leawood city leaders are pushing back against reports that the Overland Park Hesperia campus could be the future home of the Kansas City Royals. Leawood Mayor Mark Elkins released a statement this morning on behalf of the city regarding a potential stadium site. Here's the statement from the city of Leawood's mayor, Mark Elkins. The city of Leawood supports keeping the Kansas City Royals in our region. However, the city council and I cannot at this time support the Overland Park Hesperia campus as an appropriate location for a Major League Baseball stadium. While Hesperia is in Overland Park, it is located directly across from Knoll Avenue from Leawood. Based on media reports and direct feedback from our residents, we share serious concerns about the potential impacts on Leawood and its citizens should a stadium be built on this property. These concerns include traffic congestion, noise and lighting, public safety and emergency access, parking in residential neighborhoods, infrastructure capacity, and impacts on nearby schools, medical facilities, senior living communities, and established single-family residential areas. The rest of the statement from the Leawood mayor goes on the note here. These concerns have been amplified by the state of Kansas's lack of transparency regarding any plans for the site, which has eroded trust that residents' concerns will be heard and meaningfully considered. We are further troubled by public statements from T-Mobile and the Jewish Community Center Association, two institutions that are vital to the economic and cultural fabric of the area. Their expressed concerns about this proximity of a stadium and the negative impacts they anticipate underscore the broader risks associated with the location. Given the concerns raised by residents, writes the Overland Park mayor, and the opposition voiced by key institutions in this area, as well as the lack of information regarding the project, the city of Leawood cannot, at this time, support the location of a stadium at the Hesperia campus in Overland Park. There you go. That's outstanding.
Show some RESPICT.
It's nice to see somebody call this whole thing out for what it is. I love the line about the state of Kansas's lack of transparency. It's amazing to me how little transparency there continues to be, whether it's from state leaders or it's from local leaders, most notably in Overland Park and Johnson County. And finally, somebody is standing up, and it's coming from Leawood Mayor Mark Elkins, and it's coming from the city council as well. And it's about time somebody in elected office around here actually stood up for the residents in the wake of this just absolutely terrible idea that has been put together by local leaders and state leaders and the Royals. So, I mean, things are lining up, I think, for the better right now to avoid putting a baseball stadium at 119th and Knoll. And listen, I've heard from a lot of people who live in that area who obviously don't want it, who are starting to realize that this is a real possibility and it's a bad thing. Here's the deal, though. Just to be clear and be totally transparent on my end, I don't live over there. This has no impact on me. It has nothing to do with not in my backyard. I just think it's terrible for fans. I think it's terrible for that part of town, and it makes absolutely zero sense. But it's got nothing to do with me. I have heard from people in that area, and they're like, we're okay with the Royals coming to Kansas, just not in our backyard. It's like, well, why? No. Either you think it's a good idea and you think the Star Bonds are a good idea, or you don't. Okay, and if you're the Royals, I get why that location makes sense. You can tap into guaranteed sales tax revenues that you can get to pay off your stadium that will be there whether or not your stadium is a success or not because of how successful that part of Kansas is. It's an easy way to guarantee yourself the ability to pay off the stadium because remember, the Star Bonds are not backed by the state. They are fully on the hook. And that's where Missouri does have a leg up. Missouri is backing its bonds. The state of Kansas does not back Star Bonds. So if you're the Royals and you're serious about Kansas, you want to go to a place where you know you're most likely to be able to pay off that stadium and pay off those bonds. And 119th and Knoll is it. But thankfully, we do have some local leaders who are finally standing up to the chaos and the terrible ideas that are coming out of these places.